Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Eric Jenkins. I'm the account manager for Connecting Up in TechSoup New Zealand, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our newest webinar here, which is Gain a Clear Understanding of Your Organization's Data and Impact Using Power BI, which is going to be presented by Matt Walton from InfoExchange. We'll just start with a little bit of housekeeping here. All the lines are muted, so if you've got any questions during the session, please just type it in the questions box, and Matt will answer them during the end of the webinar. Please note your comments and questions won't be appearing to the entire group. If you've got any technical issues, please also type it in the same question box, and I will try my best to answer those for you. If you're on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can impact the quality of the audio and video, so if possible, please do try and close those just to help you have the best experience today. Otherwise, before we start, I'd also like to remind you that after this webinar, we will send out a recording since it is being recorded, and we'll try to send a link out to the slides to you as well, all typically within a week after this webinar ends, and you'll then be able to access it at any time. Otherwise, that's about it from me. So Matt, if you want to take it away, please feel free to go ahead.
Sure, thanks Eric, and welcome everyone to today's webinar on decisions with data. Today's all about business intelligence for your organization. So I'm hoping some of you have already had some contact with us in regards to data. I know my colleague Sam Hedbury did a webinar a couple of weeks ago, which we'll touch on in a minute, around the data foundations and things you need to think about data. So hopefully you're on your data journey, but this webinar will be pretty basic, not too technical. So those of you who are just starting on the journey are welcome, and hopefully this gives you an idea of where you can head, because we do know that this is becoming more and more common and popular, that you do need to leverage your data better and look at business intelligence options. So that's why we've started doing this webinar series, and hopefully today will help. So I think, as Eric said, if you have any questions throughout, feel free to type in, but otherwise feel free to contact me directly. My phone number and email address are on the final slide as well, which you'll get sent. So Sam and I will respond, or one of our team will respond. So in terms of me, I've been working in the sector for 20 years in a range of roles, both as a CEO of a small not-for-profit, as manager of sort of community services, but then also as a communications manager and IT project manager and CIO of a large national charity. So that's helped form my background around, and I'll use some of those examples today around how I've learn't to value data and some of the ways that we've learnt to leverage data. But more commonly recently, so for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been at InfoExchange, and we've been doing sort of IT strategy and planning and consultancy with hundreds of not-for-profits. And even recently, over the last year or two, we've actually been doing dedicated data consultancy because it's become so popular and so common. So as a not-for-profit ourselves, we understand the challenges in the sector and hope we can help. So hopefully this free webinar today will give you a bit of a sense of where you can head for your organization. So the agenda today, we'll do a bit of an overview of the importance of business intelligence in the NFP sector, but pretty quickly we'll get into some detail around data visualization, which is really the fun stuff actually of data. So it's where we get to start seeing all the cool tools and dashboards and those sort of things. So we'll do a bit of an overview of that, and then we'll get into one of our favorite tools, which is Power BI. So it's a tool that we think is relevant for a lot of not-for-profits. So we'll focus most of our time on that and give you some practical examples of how you can build sort of dashboards and reports, and how you can access your data and visualize that using Power BI. So I'm hoping that particularly the last half of this session will be very practical, and you will learn about how to do this in your organization. So it's reasonably simple tools. We'll talk about a couple of the more advanced features, and then we'll do a summary and recap. And again, we'll have time at the end for questions. So before we get into the sort of more focus on business intelligence, I just wanted to take a step back and just remind you, now most of you who have been in previous webinars with Sam this will look familiar to you, but what this basically is, it's trying to describe that the stuff we're looking at today, which is data visualization, is essentially the end result of a lot of other work that goes on to do with data. So it's essentially the front end or the sexy stuff, whereas the other things that we've got on this slide around data foundations, governance and planning and management sound a bit boring, and sometimes they are, but they're important because without those, the visualization isn't as effective. So, we had an example recently where we're trying to do all this great visualization work with one of our clients, but we kept stumbling across these issues because their data that they were putting into their system, or the way they were putting it into their system, or the fact that some of their staff weren't putting it into their system, meant that the visualizations and the reports and the dashboards, they weren't getting the value out of them because they weren't accurate and the data had gaps in it. So the visualization stuff is in some cases the easy part, and it's just viewing all the data. All that other work behind the scenes around making sure your data's secure, making sure you're collecting data, making sure your staff value data, making sure you know what data you need, and making sure you review your practices and have some governance around that is very important. So this is a type of matrix that we've developed for you to do a bit of your own assessment and just get a sense of where you're at with each of these. And if these topics, the foundations, governance and planning and management, are interesting to you, I'd encourage you to access the recordings. Now, I think you can do that through connecting up, but I'll check with Eric for the webinar that we held a few weeks ago that Sam talked about this in a lot more detail, or register for a future webinar. We'll run these on a regular basis. So I didn't want to go into too much detail about data capability, but I just wanted to put in context that the stuff that we're talking about today, which is data visualization, is really the tip of the iceberg, and it's the front-facing part of data, of a data plan for your organization. So hope that helps put that in context. So in terms of business intelligence, so this is a pretty boring statement by the CIO Insider, but really what it's saying is that accessing the data that we already have to help us do our jobs better. So that's really what business intelligence is. So you've already got all this great, most of you are already using software or services, or you've got Excel sheets or Access databases or whatever it is. So you've already got data. What business intelligence does is turn that data into something you can use for your organization to help you make decisions, so help your management make decisions, or help your frontline services make decisions. So when we talk about business intelligence, that's the sort of thing that we need in the broad category. When we talk about business intelligence in the NFP sector, really it's saying that don't underestimate the importance of data and business intelligence for NFPs. So NFPs actually have a combined total income of $134 billion in Australia. So it's actually really an important sector, and we actually do a lot of the work that either governments can't do or corporates don't want to do. So it is really an important sector. And we hire 1.2 million staff across the country as well. Donations are becoming more and more important. And so what we're saying is, if this sector doesn't do business intelligence well or doesn't really make a focus, it will have an impact on the society and the economy and the people who need it most. So there are over 600,000 organisations. So yeah, as we said there, 1 in 15 Australians work for an NFP. And I love a lot of the staff that we work with at NFPs. They're very focused on front end service delivery. So they're the youth workers or the homelessness workers or people who work in the disability sector that come to work every day to help others. And they really focus their efforts on that pointy end, the coal face. But what that means is often you don't put the time into, the more strategic stuff around achieving the outcomes or actually going and doing the back end stuff like business intelligence, which sometimes gets forgotten when you're busy, working with people face to face.
Hey, Matt, it's Eric here. Just interrupting very quickly. Sorry about that. Sorry, my thing just muted there. So I think we're all stuck on the first slide, actually. It doesn't look like the slides have come through for the rest of them. I know that was working when we tested it before we started the webinar, but yeah, we're still stuck on the title screen. So have you got the slides going on your machine, I'm guessing? Or?
Yeah, I do. Let me try again. Can you see the business intelligence in the NFP sector slide now?
No, not at the moment.
What about now?
Yep.
So you can see a slide that says business intelligence in the NFP sector?
Yes, can see that.
Okay, apologies everyone. So yeah, I'll keep going if you don't mind. You probably haven't missed too much. Just as a bit of a backtrack, for those of you who are confused about what I was talking about when I was talking about the digital capability matrix, that's it there. So again, we'll send through these slides, but yeah, and I won't talk about that all again, but that was one of the slides that you missed. And that was the quote. And now we've just started talking through business intelligence in the NFP sector. So really where we're at was talking about the growing need for measurement by funders. So this is becoming more and more important where people, so governments or philanthropic trusts are asking more and more for people to talk to them about client outcomes. So no longer is it acceptable for people to, or for organizations to just say, hey, we had 22 attendances today or last week, or we had 400 hours of support. Now we've got to focus on outcomes around, okay, the person that spent a day in our respite service, actually we helped him, build his skills around social interactions, or we helped him write a resume that will help him find a job, or we helped sort of build their confidence in public speaking, or whatever it may be. But really, that tracking client outcomes is becoming more and more important. And that's the same with donations. So donations are growing, I think it was 2.4% last year. So it's becoming more and more important that people are accountable for those donations. So to do all this tracking of outcomes, NFPs are more likely to have a system now. So the survey that we did recently said that I think it was 60% of organizations actually had some form of system, client management system or something like that, to start using for in storing the client outcomes. And that then creates a great opportunity for business intelligence, because once you start storing all that information, whether it's in Excel or a system, but as long as it's not on paper, as long as if you're storing that information in a electronic format, then it really gives you the foundation for business intelligence. So as we've touched on, the right intelligence and insight really allows you to demonstrate the impact of your services. So it allows you to say, and this is both internal and external, to tell your staff, hey, all that work you did last week is making a difference, because last week, Johnny didn't have a resume, and he was really, upset because he was struggling with where he was going to find a job. But now he's got a resume and he's applied for jobs and he's got interviews. So being able to track that impact and that change, and then the impact on society once that happens, is very important. But unless you're tracking that, you're not informed about the impact of those services and service provisions. The other one is when you know, when you have access to that data. So when the managers or the boards are sitting down and looking and defining their strategy and going, okay, what services are we going to provide? What's working well? What's not working well? Then accessing that data can be critical to say, hey, this service is having a really big impact, but we're spending a lot of time and money over this service that's not having impact. Let's focus on the one that's having a better impact. And also the competitive advantage that goes along with that. So when your board are going, okay, well, this one, the outcomes of the program around youth services is unique and no one else is doing that. And we can then take that to government and say, look at this great work we've done with taking youth out of the prison system and embedding them back into society using that data. So once you've got that, then you can feed that back in and make those decisions. And again, just exploring your internal strengths and weaknesses as well. And being competitive in funding and from marketing. I have a lot of marketing departments, love this data area where they're really saying, if you can give me stats and information and an infographic around how many people we're helping, what impact that's having on the community, what future potential there is for all this work that you're doing. You can put that in your funding submissions and you can put that in your marketing materials, and that's becoming more and more popular and more important. So who is this for? So it's actually for a wide range of people, but one of the main groups that we get coming to us, or we get staff coming to us saying, hey, my managers really want this dashboard, or the board need to see this information. So really it's that organizational strategy. So it's building up that strategic plan, understanding your impact of your service delivery, as well as monitoring ongoing performance. So, one of the popular ones at the moment is the board dashboard, where they can see the risk management framework, or the balance sheet, or the profit and loss, or the cash flow, or whatever it may be, compared to last month, compared to budget, compared to last year, those sort of things. So having that really dashboard for these people allows them to make their decisions and identify risks and monitor that. The other people are middle management. So it's those sort of team leaders, coordinators, service delivery managers. They're the ones that are employing staff, looking where the gaps are in the market, looking where you don't have enough staff and there's over demand for services. So the ability to say, hey, this service is getting 300 inquiries and they've got a big waiting list, and everyone's really overutilized in that area, whereas this other service, the staff are only working at 30% capacity and there's all staff sitting around doing nothing. So let's manage that a little better and identify trends of where that needs to head. All right. But the more important people, the people that I'm assuming there's not too many case managers or direct service workers on the call, but these are the people that we as IT managers or data specialists need to advocate for, because these are I always say these are the most important people in the sector. They're the people doing the tough stuff out on the streets and out doing the direct service delivery. So they're the ones that we need to retain, and to retain them, there's no better way to retain a staff than to be able to go back to them and say, this is the impact of your work. This is how you've changed this person's life over the last 12 months. They started out back here with their mental health an issue, their housing situation was fragile, their family was on the rocks. But now look at the progress over the last 12 months and look at where they are now. So based on that, that's really good to both recruit and retain staff and volunteers. But also to give them the information to identify trends and benchmark against different services or different clients. So the fact that those people who are on the ground and who are seeing this stuff all the time, they're usually best placed to be able to say, hey, there's this gap in the market, or hey, our clients are asking more and more for this, can we provide it? And then the last group of people, but definitely not least, are the administration staff who get hassled on a regular basis, either by the CEO saying, hey, I've got a board meeting next week, tell me how many attendees we've had in our services this month. Or, hey, we're doing our annual audit or quality compliance sort of audit, tell me how we've progressed or how we've delivered our services. So these are the poor people who have to, hand count bits of paper or sift through multiple Excel spreadsheets. So, I'm assuming we've got a few of these poor people on the line that have to do all this manual entry. So as a minimum, if we can save these guys a bit of time, there's a lot of impact that can be had by just saving that time. All right, how can it be done? So how can we solve all those problems, and how can we give people business intelligence capabilities? So luckily, not luckily, but by design, by many of these organizations and by people like Microsoft who have identified a need in the market for these sort of tools, they've said the services and products have matured so much. So they used to be tools that researchers used, or maybe if people had to go to uni and study things like SPSS and really complex tools that were quite hard to use. But now the tools are getting easier and easier, and in some cases free or really cheap, that anyone can access them and just start working with them. And that's the big difference. So you don't necessarily need, me to send Sam Hedbury out as our data consultant to do it all for you. You can do a lot of it yourself. And because of this, we are seeing an increased uptake of the use of these products. So we're seeing people giving it a go. Whereas 5 years ago, when I started doing these IT plans, business intelligence wasn't even a thing really for most people. Most people weren't on the cloud. Most people were using, paper. But now we're seeing most people have access to this data because it's all cloud-based in a system, or at least in Excel, and we can access the data. So we're also seeing the roles related to data. So many of our clients now actually have someone called a systems analyst or a business analyst or a data specialist, or in some cases they engage a consultant like us to come in and do it. But it's a focus on data that boards and managers are understanding that it's more important, and they're willing to fund that in roles or projects. And more funding bodies are asking for this information. So NDIS is really changing the way the disability sector have to record outcomes. So now most disability organisations actually need a client management system of some sort to track the outcomes and to track the use of how many hours and service provision and all of that. And the growing need is around real-time data. So no longer can we wait until the end of the month to everyone input their, stats into a spreadsheet, and then the manager goes, "Oh wow, we've just blown our budget for the year in this month," without knowing it. So there's plenty of ways to do that now, and these are some of the drivers. There are a whole heap of visualization tools out there. So again, we're agnostic, and we're not saying any of these tools are good or bad, but we just wanted to make you aware of what's out there. So obviously, we'll spend most of the day talking about Power BI, but Tableau is becoming more and more common in the market, and they're doing some aggressive marketing and pretty good pricing. ClickView, we've seen, attached to a lot of, systems like MyOb and those sort of things. SPSS is one that's been around for a while, and a lot of people are using that as well. Google Data Studio has been launched sort of recently. So there's a whole heap of them out there that are available for use, all different costs and all different skill sets to be able to use them. But what we're going to talk about, I don't think it's any surprise to most of you that today's we're going to focus on Power BI. So Power BI is really, it's a one-stop shop for those dashboards. It's customizable, and it's pretty easy to use, and it integrates with Office 365 and other Microsoft products. So to be honest, the main reason we recommend Power BI nowadays is because most people already have it. So anyone on Office 365 essentially already has access to Power BI. Anyone using Office 2016 or a recent version of Office, it integrates really well with that. So essentially what it is, it's a tool developed by Microsoft that's part of the Office 365 platform. The great bit about it is it's a simple tool. So it's pretty user-friendly, and it allows you to do it yourself, or at least have a go. And it's scalable, so you can start with some basic stuff and then learn as you go if you need to. You don't have to be an expert or to have some form of certification to just use the tool. And what its focus is really simplifying complex various data and trying to simplify it in a visual format to give you those insights. And one of the most exciting things is you can give you real-time data to provide you with those insights. So we'll touch on this a little bit later, but if you can link Power BI with some of the data sources that are live, so a Salesforce environment or a SharePoint list. So as people are putting things into Salesforce or SharePoint or whatever tool you're using, if Power BI is connected to that, it will just show the data as it appears. So your dashboard will change as you go. So that's the really exciting stuff around the real time. So it's not you're waiting till the end of the week, end of the month for people to input data. It's just as service delivery people are using their client management system, you start accessing it. It is a really good looking tool. You can make it really user friendly, and it's very impressive. So if you can, present a really nice looking dashboard to your board, through a web portal or through their board portal on SharePoint or whatever tool they're using, it's very impressive. So you will get a lot of kudos if you can present something really, sexy to your board and your management, and will look impressive. And the other one is really that range of data sources. So I know most organizations that I have seen in the not-for-profit sector have various data sources. There's rarely one, actually I'm not sure I've ever seen one, that has just one tool that does everything. So finance, client management, project management, risk management, all of those things that you collect data on, very rarely do you have it in a big massive ERP that's integrated and has all these reports. So where most not-for-profits are left is that they have to, get data from their finance system and get data from their client management system and get data from their other, risk system or whatever other systems you have. So that's the good thing about Power BI is it can pull from all of those systems. And it's interactive and highly customizable is the other the very cool part. So you can make it suit your organization. So it's not just out of the box, here it is, this is what you have to use. You can build it and make it suit you and make these dashboards suit what you're wanting to show your managers and your staff. So that's a really cool one. So I often get questions about licensing. So I just thought I'd add this in here just to preempt some of those. And the first sort of point there that will excite most of you is that essentially most of you can get away with using this for free. So you can add to your Office 365 tenant, if you're eligible, assuming you're eligible for the free E1 licenses, you can add Power BI free to that for all of your staff if you want to, or whatever staff need to see and interact with Power BI reports. And that is usually enough for most organizations. So you can develop a lot of these reports in the free version. Where some people like to pay, so for example, even in our office, only a handful of people actually have a Power BI Pro license. And a lot of our clients, only a couple of 1 or 2 people have it. So this is the people that are creating dashboards and doing the work to create Power BI. So not just the board member looking at the report who can get away with the free version, but this is someone who's spending a lot of time in Power BI Pro. But still, it's only $3.80 a user a month, excluding GST. So and you can just buy that for a couple of users through your Office 365 tenant. So there's a little comparison table there to see what you get. But really, the reason that you would need that paid license, it's all about sharing. So the peer-to-peer sharing, if you want 2 people working on a dashboard at once, they need a pro license. But if you're just sharing to your intranet or your board, you can publish to the web, essentially, is what that is, or export, and you don't need paid licenses for that. So I hope that clarifies the licensing. Premium, to be honest, most of our clients don't need this. This is if you wanted to create a data warehouse or somewhere to store all of your organization's reports. Then you'll need Power BI. The licensing is a little complicated, so you just go and use that calculator to do it. But it's on top of Power BI Pro and the free licenses. But otherwise, you can create reports and store them yourself within Power BI and within your environment. So most people don't need that premium. All right. So moving off licensing, the other thing I wanted to be clear about around the actual tool is you can have a web version and you can have a desktop version, but they're pretty similar, to be honest. And it's similar to how you can have Word Online and Word on your desktop. So you can have Power BI online, which is the picture on the right. So they're very similar. So most of the time, actually, and even some of the demos I've got in these slides, they're the web version. So you can do a lot of the cool stuff in the web version. So, and both the web and the desktop are available with that free version. So you don't need to pay extra for the desktop version. So the main difference is, if you can see, the one on the right has a little yellow, square in the top left corner with the ellipse. That's the web browser. That's the menu bar for Office 365. So it means you can easily browse around away from Power BI onto other tools. The other desktop version there on the left, that's just something you install on your local PC and use it on your desktop. So hopefully that makes sense, the difference between the desktop and the web version. All right, so let's start getting into some interesting stuff around Power BI. And where we're going to spend the rest of the session today is around the building blocks. So the 4 components of Power BI. So it's data, reports, visualizations, and dashboards. So everything we talk about and all the work to do with Power BI stems off one of these 4. So data, obviously all of the information, everything you see on a dashboard comes from somewhere and has to live somewhere. So there's 2 different ways to do that. So Microsoft have the app source, which basically means you can connect into live data. And now I mentioned before, Salesforce was a good example. Or most of you have Google Analytics attached to your website, or a SharePoint list with your incident reporting or something like that. So you can find that data and go and link to that data, and then that will just create a live feed essentially into Power BI. The other source of data is importing and connecting. So if you've got an Excel file or a local database, a SQL database or something like that, you can connect into that data which is stored locally. So obviously the Excel file you can have stored there, and just as you update the Excel, then it updates Power BI. So a lot of people do extracts from their client management system. If you can't get direct integration, you just do an Excel or CSV extract, and then Power BI can connect into that extract. And then you do another extract the next day or the next week or the next month. So there's several different ways to do that. The other thing around data is you can also use publicly available data. So this is Bureau of Statistics or AIHW housing data, or health and wellbeing data, or publicly available data. Info Exchange are also working on what we're calling an open data platform, which shares all the information that we have in our Ask Izzy platform, which is people who are looking for services in our service seeker database. So we have data on searches of, someone's homeless looking for a shelter or a meal on a Friday night in Richmond. We have that de-identified data that, we're planning on opening up to governments and not-for-profits. So that's an exciting progression. So these are just some of the data sources that you can log into. So I'm sure you can, some of those are familiar to you, whether it's Excel or Exchange or MailChimp or SurveyMonkey or SharePoint or whatever it may be. So that's one of the cool things about Office 365 and Power BI. So what I've got here, I'm going to do a little sort of demo. So this is, as you say, as we saw before, this is the web version of Power BI. So this is me logged in, and we're going to start accessing data. So as you can see, I've just clicked the Get button. I'm going to find my data. So in this case, I'm going to find a local file. I'm going to just start with the simplest way of data. You can see this is actually on a Mac. So it's on a web version on a Mac, and I just find an Excel document that's stored on a Mac. So I've selected that, and I'm importing that spreadsheet into Power BI. So essentially now, there we go, your data set is ready. So that data set, that Excel spreadsheet, is now in Power BI, and that is now the base that you can leverage for all of the other things. So all of the other things that we are going to do today and that you're going to work on is used from that data set. Now you can obviously have multiple data sets as well, but just saying how quick and easy that was like 3 clicks to get in the data into Power BI. All right, so that's as simple as you get in terms of getting one data set. Now, obviously, we'll do some more complex stuff later, but as a minimum, you go into the web browser, Power BI, go into the data sets, add a data set referring to your Excel spreadsheet, and now it's in there. All right, so the next step after the data is in there is the visualization. So this is where we work out, what do you want to see? What do you want it to look like? There is a lot of out of the box different graphs. So it's similar to when you're in Excel or in PowerPoint and you're trying to decide, do you want a pie chart or a line graph or a scatter plot or whatever it may be. And there's some really cool ones around geospatials and other ones. So do you want a map of your services? That's being able to show your board or show your staff where all the services are being delivered from. So again, here you're in the Power BI tool, and this is where you start doing your visualization of your data. So again, over on the left here, we're choosing our data set. So that's the one we uploaded before, webinar PBI data set. So you're choosing your data set on the left, and now we go and select the fields on the right. So really we're picking how we want to display that and what fields we want to display. So the exciting bit is you can mash up the different types of data. So I think today we're going to choose a pie chart. Just for this type of data, pie charts tend to work better. And the great bit about the visualization is you could resize, rename really easy. And then every data field in that spreadsheet comes up in the boxes on the right. So you see I've clicked client ID and gender. And this is where you mash them up and you try and, basically select the different data fields that you want to show in that one graph. So this is, we've got the client ID by service location. So this is show us how many at the city site, how many at Clayton and Brunswick. Whereas now we want to flesh it out by gender. And we want to see, okay, how many males versus females are going into each of those sites. And you can see that there's a neutral one as well, which is the green blank one. But we can see that more males go to the city sites, but more females go to the Clayton site. So again, this is starting to explore those insights. And you can see how interactive it is. You can easily go, oh, okay, yeah, that doesn't work. Let's try something else, or let's add this in and see how it goes. So it's really interactive and generally easy to use. And this is one of the simpler ones, obviously, is the data visualization. You can obviously do a lot more complex. You can change colors and you can make it do whatever you want to do. So essentially for each bit of data, that's how you visualize. So you can make that look however you want it to look. And there's a lot of inbuilt fields within the Power BI tool that allow you to have a play around with that. All right, now moving on from the visualization into the reports. So reports are one or more visualizations in a single data set. So this is where we're going to leverage off the visualizations that we've done before and start showing those reports that we can then pin to the dashboards. And they are interactive, that can be filtered or sliced, and they're highly customizable. So here's our report. So this is the visualization that we set up before. So it's similar to the pie graph, but in this case, we've decided to do a bar chart, and we can change the title and muck around with how it looks. And so this is, we're picturing how we can present this to our managers or our staff, or what are the key things that we want to do? Is it more important to do it by gender or by site? And then people can click in and do some filters and show that for each site. And then you can drill down into the different pieces of the data set. So you can see in this one by gender, and you can see that, for example, the males are seeking more financial aid than the females. And that's how the red one there, it's just showing the males or just showing the females and how many across each one. So this is where you try and understand what your managers or staff want to see and make that report. And then from that report, then you decide what to publish internally. So this is where you sort of save it and then create a name for that report and publish that internally. So this is my decisions with data report. And then I'm based on this, then we'll decide, okay, do I just export this and send that, or do I put it up on the board portal, or have those reports all ready to go? So as you see, it only took a couple of minutes to actually get that report saved. And now that we've got those reports, going into my favorite bit, which is the dashboards. So really, what I expect most of you would do is just spend a lot of time understanding what reports you need, creating a lot of reports. So it could be that at any one board meeting, the boards want to see about 10 different reports. So it's a cash flow report, or as we said before, a balance sheet report, or an asset report, plus client outcome report, plus a risk report. So this is where you might create a board dashboard. And really it's around a canvas where you can put as many tiles or widgets as you want. And that's each visualization or each report goes into that dashboard. And again, they're interactive and can be shared. All right, so again, this is going to show you how easy it is to create a dashboard. So essentially, you're going to the dashboard section of your report of Power BI, and you're going into your workspace. And this is where you add various data sets into tiles to form a dashboard. So we're looking at your data sets that we had before. So this is that Excel sheet that we uploaded, and these are the reports that we created before. So that decisions with data is the gender one. And now we go, okay, out of all of those reports and data sets, let's create a dashboard. So there's various options, and you can essentially think about where you're presenting this and what those people want to see on any given day. So this is, you've got the dashboard, and then you go and add the individual reports and tiles. So as we can see here, this is the one we did before around gender. So we're going to add that to our dashboard, and we're going to add it to the existing dashboard or create a new one. So you can actually do these things in various different orders. You can create them all from here, but personally I like to create all my reports first and then build the dashboard from this spot. So again, we're adding multiple reports to this one dashboard. So again, the most important thing is to empathize with the people reading the dashboard and try and have it in a way that categorizes data into the one dashboard, or allows those people to say, okay, on the monthly board site, everything that you have on that dashboard is for the month, because when they're going to the dashboard, all they're thinking about is the month of May, because this is a month of May report. Whereas you have others that might be all about client outcomes, or you might be dashboards around specific regions as well. So it could be that you're setting up a dashboard for the manager of your northern region of services. So all they want to see is the reports to do with the north region. And as you can see there, we've added all of those different reports, and you've got the various dashboards there. And then, you can, from here, you can tweak them and change them as well. So you're not sort of dictated necessarily. Now you can structure these dashboards however you want and put them in whatever format. So there's some really flexible ways to be able to shrink and grow and restructure and just, again, put them in a way that's going to be easy to read and understand by whoever the audience of this dashboard is. And ordering the data in a way that that makes sense. And it's a really sort of user-friendly tool. As you can see there, it's just dragging and dropping and doing by location or putting little boxes or making things. You might have one tile that's the hero of the page that you want big and others that are just complementary. You have others from various data sets on the one dashboard. So this one's, I think it was mostly from that Excel sheet, but you might have others where you've got tiles from Salesforce, and you've got others from your finance system, and you've got others from your risk management system, all appearing on the one dashboard. So this is the bit where it's almost the fun bit for many of it. And you also have the ability to search and access all of that data. All right, so I also wanted to show you that there are lots of different types of dashboards. So I'll show you one that we did recently. Again, this was based on what a client wanted, and what they were after is they wanted to provide insights to their frontline workers. So that was the key one, where we got this from various data sources and various extracts. But really what it was about is showing the different services types and showing the number of visitors by accommodation, by gender, by different outlets, number of visitors by cold or age group or gender, and the types of services they provided, whether they were hygiene services or provided clothing or provided phone support or other things. So it's giving both the frontline workers an idea of what they've provided, as well as the management and board were able to see this at a high level overview. So it could be, though, that particular people from particular services could then click on one of these and drill down into their service or their demographic that they really wanted more information on. So, conscious of time, I did want to try and save some time for questions, but look, it is one of those things we could spend all day on, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a taster of how to do that. So hopefully that 4 steps around how to set up get your data source, get your visualizations, get your report, and get your dashboards, give you a sense of how easy this is and the value of it and how it can look. But there are a whole heap of other things that, for down the track for the more advanced users, you might want to look at. So it's more those advanced things around predictive analytics or, artificial intelligence, or having a data warehouse from multiple sources stored in Microsoft Azure, or, leveraging that Power BI Premium as well. So that's where, the sky's the limit in terms of where you could go to. And then it's also integrating with the other Office 365 tools. So we've had a lot of success recently in doing SharePoint lists for, complaints or incidents, or just some basic things where you don't need a OH&S system for smaller clients, but you might want to do some basic data collection on SharePoint or through a form. And then you can do the dashboard. So on this complaints register, they fill it out on a form. It goes into a SharePoint list, and then we have a Power BI dashboard presenting the data from that SharePoint list so that managers can go, oh, okay, how are our complaints going? What categories are they in? What sites are they from? And then they can identify trends. The other ones that I was going to just quickly skim through were querying data, sharing, and quick insights. So were three other things that we thought might be suitable for you. So really, this is about, it's essentially the Google search function of your dashboard. So it's a really cool part of the tool that helps you get direct access to the queries. So when you're in there trying to understand, okay, what are the different fields I might use, you can do a search and it looks for the data sets. So this is particularly useful when you've got multiple data sets and you can't remember, what was in that Excel sheet and what was in the other. You don't have to open up each data source and look for it. You can just search for it here through the Q&A tool of querying data, which is really cool. The other one is sharing data. So this is where you can say, okay, I've got this great dashboard now. How do I get my staff to see it? And as we saw before, if you're just publishing it on SharePoint, or you're doing an export, or even external, they don't even need a paid license, so they can use those free licenses. So where Power BI really has the value is where you start sharing and getting other people to interact with it. And you can manage the permissions about what they can do, whether they can view, whether they can edit, all those sort of things. But you can embed Power BI. So for those people who use Microsoft Teams, is a new Microsoft tool that allows you to edit these things and display the data. SharePoint, I've talked about boards a lot. A lot of our clients' boards have a SharePoint portal. So we can just put in a little web part on a page in a SharePoint board portal where they can see these dashboards. So they don't actually need to go into Power BI as part of their Office 365 account. You can also share it with your external funders. So you might have a philanthropic trust or someone who's really interested, or a manager or a key contact at the government who wants sort of live queries, and you can give them access to a dashboard and they can see it almost live. So it's really improving that accountability. Quick insights as well. Again, that's just, it automatically populates from the data set. So it's just some really quick and easy tools that you can do that are interactive and can be queried and are automatic. So again, you don't have to do it all yourself. So I just wanted to recap. Now, again, that's not everything that Power BI can do, but it's just a taster, really, just to give you a sense of what we need. So what we've covered today, we've done a bit of an overview of business intelligence. We've talked about business intelligence in NFPs. We've talked about introduction to Power BI and the building blocks. So I've given you a demo on how to get a data source, how to visualize Power BI reports and dashboards. And we've talked about data querying, sharing, and insights. So there's some of the key things that we've covered today. And I really hope that it's given you a taste and enough to go, okay, this is something that we should look into or resource or really focus on moving forward, because what we're seeing, it's becoming more and more important for not-for-profits. And I'm going to leave you with this quote. I know it's a very long quote, but it was fitting that we thought we'd put something in from ACOS, which is our sort of peak body in the not-for-profit sector, really just trying to convey the importance of data and business intelligence. So it's really just saying that the sector gets risk being left behind by private organisations, whether these are disability or childcare, that are able to have these tools and have the expertise to use these tools. So we can access this data and improve our service outcomes. So going back to the example of Ask Izzy, where we're collecting people using the app to find housing in Richmond on a Friday night, then we can actually use that data to say, okay, not-for-profit sector or government, hey, we've got a need in Richmond for some more emergency accommodation. How can we provide that? Let's get some funding, or let's put the word out to not-for-profits and go, okay, who can help us with filling this gap? And we only know about that gap because of data and because of business intelligence. So I'll leave you with that. Again, it's not all about IT. It's not all about servers and boring technical tools. It's around using these tools to help us do our job better and help us help the people who need it. All right, so I'll wrap up. I'm exactly on time, on 12, so I thought I would try and keep it to the hour. But feel free to get in touch. Either myself or Sam or one of the team will get back to you. We are happy to help. We are doing some data consultancy in the sector. We are sort of using Power BI a lot. We are helping clients use it too, integrating with other systems. So happy to help. Again, we're here to help, and keep an eye out also through Connecting Up for upcoming webinars that we're going to do these on an ongoing basis. So we've got a couple of different ones, and we'll keep doing more and more. And as we said previously, we're open to feedback. So if you've got some other things you want to see in these webinars, or if there's some more data specific stuff as well, just let us know, and we'll help form our content for the next series of webinars coming up. So I might throw to you, Eric. It seems like we've run out of time for questions. So if everyone's happy with that, I'm happy to just take questions via email. Or feel free to contact me.
You answered during the presentation. Yep.
Oh, good. So, look, Eric, was there any other burning questions that anyone desperately needed answers today, or otherwise, yeah, everyone can contact me afterwards.
No, it was all good. You managed to get through them all actually during the presentation, which was great. Otherwise, it was just good feedback for you. So thank you very much. It sounds like the attendees really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you very much for presenting that, and thanks to everyone else for coming along. I hope you guys all learned a lot. It sounds like you did. So like Matt's been saying, if you guys do have any questions, do feel free to get in contact with him. He's got his details there. Otherwise, do get in contact with us if you've got questions or feedback. Please send that through to events@connectingup.org or events@techsoup.net.nz, and we'll get back to you on that. Otherwise, don't forget, we will be getting the recording up within the next week, and a link will be sent out to you, so keep an eye out on your inbox. So yeah, thank you very much. Matt, if you don't have anything to add, I think we're all good to go here.
Yeah, just apologies again for anyone who missed the first couple of slides. So, feel free to have a look at them once Eric sends them out. But thanks again. Hope that helps, and good luck with it. Just, yeah, give it a go.
All right, brilliant. Thanks, Matt. And thank you, everyone, for joining us again. Have a nice day, guys. See ya.
Thanks.